All right, sir. How are you today?
Good, buddy. How are you?
Good. You're all turtlenecked up there up in the bitter cold Northeast, huh? We had some
Yeah, it's
chilly. We had
cold,
a
man.
chilly morning. I think we were in like high 50s, low 60s this morning.
Oh, wow. Well, that's
Yeah.
cool. I love
Yeah.
that temperature. Yeah, it was much cooler than that. Um,
Yeah.
so,
It's probably
but
our
gray
last
and
cool
overcast.
day
Yeah.
here. So who knows? I had a little surprise over the weekend.
What happened?
Well, a gentleman reached out to me named Amir on Telegram, and somehow I guess my one of my wallet addresses is public. I think through an ENS that I used to have or something. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, he said, "Hello, sir. You know you have uh, you received an optimism airdrop." And you have you're eligible for 800 and something OP. And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And he's like, if you claim it, I would appreciate a reward for notifying you. So of course I went and checked it out, and then I checked all my other wallets. So I cleared about $4,200 yesterday of
Nice.
free OP. So I did reward him. Sent him a nice tip, a little more than 10% because I felt like, I probably wouldn't have known about it. I may have heard about it. But anyway, if you don't know about it, Optimism on the 9th did airdrop number 2. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you just come in here, connect your wallet, and it will let you know where it is. It's app.optimism.io/airdrop/check. Connect your wallet, and you'll see if you're eligible. I was eligible. This wallet was eligible because I donated to Gitcoin grants on ETH Layer 1, and I've participated in some DAOs and done some voting. So
Oh, nice.
that's two of the criteria. Multi-sig signers priced out of Ethereum. I don't know. Used bridges while being a regularly active user on L1. I have done that though. I guess that one, I didn't
Yeah.
know the right bridge. I don't know. Used an Optimism bridge prior to June 23rd, 2021, or you've repeatedly used apps on Optimism between June 23rd, 2021 and March 25th, 2022. So you guys may have money sitting out there. Go get it. Like I said, I'll put it in the show notes. But if you want to type it in right now because you want the cash, let me put it up. Let me put it up. Create a banner. Add banner. There's the address for those of you that would like to see if you got some available cash money. So
Yeah, I remember checking that one before, and I was like, the only thing I had done was bridge because I don't even think I've ever been on Optimism, and I certainly haven't voted in any DAOs. At least I don't think I have. Unless we're doing something on Doki Doki, if there was any voting going on there. Um, and then
it's
bridging,
probably layer
yes.
one. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's on
lots of
Leaf
bridging.
layer one. Yeah. Well, you should. This is another airdrop, so maybe they changed the criteria this time around.
Yeah, sounds cool.
So
Thanks.
this is a new one. Yeah. No, look. I mean, nothing like having a Sunday. Finding out on a Sunday you got an extra $4,200 in your pocket.
Yeah, it pays for your backyard fire pit.
But I didn't tell my wife because she'd just start buying more shit for the backyard. So you know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I bet she knows now.
yeah, yeah. Are you kidding me? Do you think she has ever listened to this show?
She never. Yeah, she might hear you in the other room though.
Nah,
Here's 4,200.
her mother-in-law's getting knee replacement surgery today. So
Woo.
I'm actually that's my heart. That's why I have to hard stop today at 12:45 because I'm headed out. Headed out.
Mm.
We have a guest today.
Yep.
Somebody, what's the name of it? BNB Greenfield, decentralized data
Yes.
storage system and economy. And this is another podcaster that we met through a connection at
Purple Squirrel Media, I believe. Matt.
yeah, at where were we?
Quantum, Miami.
Thank you very
Yep.
much. Brain is not functional today. Had about 4 hours sleep, so it's all on you today, Joe.
Yeah. Well, luckily we have a guest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was at a birthday party on Saturday night, and just running all over the place the last 4 days. So it's been I'm a little scattered myself. But it's funny. I saw you in there at 6 o'clock on Telegram this morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, Brad must have stayed up all night. Usually don't see him around this early.
No, I'm up that early every day taking kids to school, but
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, Paxos, the SEC came after them, as well as New York DFS came after them end of last week, over the weekend. So New York DFS came after them, told them to stop printing BUSD. So that's going to impact Binance, who just recently moved to using all BUSD on their pairs. CZ is saying, look, we'll find other options. There are plenty of stable coins out there, and they may print somewhere else, or who knows, maybe they'll go to a decentralized model. But I'd love to see them adopt Bean. That'd be pretty cool if they went decentralized. That'd be actually pretty awesome. But anyway, SEC is going after Paxos for stablecoins, calling it a security. And there's quite a bit of debate going on currently with Gabriel Shapiro. This quote's from Kraken, but Gabriel claims, one of my favorite legal authorities on Twitter for crypto, he claims that he can see easily how the SEC makes a case for stablecoins being a security, because the collateralized ones like Paxos are essentially money market funds. But there have been a lot of people pushing back and saying, well, the end user doesn't have any sense of a gain from an investment contract. There is no gain for them. That you put in $1 and you can get $1 in a stable coin, and you take the stable coin and you get another $1 back out. There's no thought that they're going to make money on the stable coin. Now Paxos makes money on the stable coin. That's their business model. They take the deposits, they earn interest on them elsewhere, and then that's how they make money supporting stable coins. So anyway, it's going to be very interesting. The really interesting thing for me is whether Paxos decides to fight them or not. Because we had last week Kraken bail and pay a $30 million fine for their staking operation, and they're ending their ETH staking operation. So Jesse Powell, the former CEO, the founder of Kraken, has been out making quite a few comments. Basically, he's saying that the SEC waited to go after them until they had done a 30% layoff, and the SEC already had access to their balance sheet, so knew how much money they had on hand. But my question is this: if you truly believe, as he claims to believe, that what they created was, yes, it was custodial, but they're not doing anything except taking it and staking the coins, right? There's not like the interest earned doesn't come from something that Kraken created. The interest earned comes from the way the Ethereum network functions. So the users are earning from that. Kraken hasn't created a security product, is kind of the argument that people are making, because they're just using what's available on the network. But my question is, was it going to cost you $30 million to fight the SEC in court?
I mean, look, this crackdown's been telegraphed for 3 years from so many people. And, now they're finally doing it. I'm not really surprised. I'm not saying I agree with it all, but, whether it's anything retail facing is, they're going after it. I wouldn't take it like they were waiting for the 30% layoff, as Jesse says. They don't care about that. They can bring the hammer anytime they want, even if, Kraken was at its peak. I think what's interesting, though, is that, you could definitely see them circling the wagons around, well, not the wagons, but circling around Binance and CZ.
Yeah.
And then there was two other things I thought was interesting. A lot of people are saying that there's USDC is getting ready to get pounded. And I kind of always thought they were in the okay spot just because of their, uniqueness of their token and what it can do within wallets and things like that. And then the second thing I thought was funny was sort of humorous was that when I saw Brian Armstrong tweeting from the Senate Dirksen building saying that his meetings were canceled. His meeting was canceled. He's in the cafeteria if anyone wants to talk about crypto. And I was thinking, I wonder who canceled that meeting on him. Yeah, so he's basically going in there to argue about staking and yield and all of that, and they just pulled the plug on him.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's a lot of ominous signaling if you're in any of those types of plays. So, adjust your risk accordingly, obviously.
Well, look, we have the pressure on the banks happening, choke point 2.0, as Nick Carter calls it. We've got them going after Paxos /Binance. We've got them going after Kraken, right?
Yep.
I would say no
USDC.
I would say no worries, except for the fact that the on-ramps are the critical factor, right? I'm not too worried about these centralized exchanges, not being allowed to have a staking operation. But what I am concerned about is them basically going after crypto to shut it all down by blocking the on-ramps. All of that said, companies have to make decisions for their own bottom line and their own shareholders when they make a decision whether to fight the SEC. But there's only been 2 projects I can think of that said, fuck you, SEC. I'm going to fight you. Library and Lost and XRP.
Well, and don't forget about Kick. Remember Kick?
Oh yeah. Kick. Did they actually even really fight it, or did they just settle eventually anyway?
They had to settle because they were just, talking a lot of tough talk that they were going to fight it. But then, they just would get hammered again. It's like if you get in those crosshairs and you start fighting, they just keep turning the screws until you have to cave. And,
I get that. But, Brian Armstrong was saying the other day that he will fight. That they will fight. Now, when it comes down to it, he's a publicly traded company, so that may not be the case when it comes down to the tightening of the screws, as you say. But I mean, here's the thing: if the SEC comes after 5 or 6 or 7 companies all at the same time, they don't have the resources to fight all of those simultaneously in court. So they are going to have a problem if people will start fighting them like XRP has, right? But so far, look, Jesse Powell is a hardcore Bitcoiner, freedom, libertarian, everything else. And he caved faster than anybody. It's like, and it's just like, if the hardcore crypto guys aren't willing to fight this shit, then, we might as well surrender now and all move to fucking Europe or Asia, because this shit is, this motherfucker is on a mission to make sure it's just him and Bitcoin at the end of all of it. And he gets to play middleman for Bitcoin. But this was funny. Gensler comes out saying, we have forms on our website. All they had to do was apply, and all they had to do was come in and talk to us. And Jesse Powell said, oh man, all I had to do was fill out a form on a website and tell people that staking rewards were coming for staking. Wish I'd seen this video before paying a $30 million fine and agreeing to permanently to shut down the service in the US. How dumb do I look? I mean, it's like, Gensler, it's like, seriously, how do you keep repeating that shit with a straight face? That everyone knows in this space that there is no point in coming to talk to you because you don't operate in good faith. So I don't know how the fuck he continues to be able to get away with saying that, and not a single reporter says, excuse me, here's what's happened when Brian Armstrong tried to come talk to you. Here's what happened when everyone comes to try to talk to you, you fuck them over. So anyway.
Well, yeah, I sort of agree with some of that. But I think that, look, it's up to the Congress. I mean, all you hear is a bunch of yelling and, all these new clowns in the House of Reps saying they're going to take Gensler to task, but, none of them are doing anything.
No.
So to me, it's like you got to set the framework. I mean, there's no new, hopefully something comes out of the Ripple stuff, but there's no real, they're still relying on Howey test. I mean, not just SEC, but, companies making quotes from like, what was that, 1936 or something, or I don't know, 40 something. I can't even remember. But, how could you even, whatever side you're on, how does that even meet the smell test today?
Right.
I mean, I got it during the ICO stuff. It was a rationalization for how to take the Jobs Act into retail fundraising without accredited people. So it worked for that argument. But now it's 5 years later. I would have thought that people would be more sophisticated on both sides. But look, like we said before, crypto London, Hong Kong, places like that, you can go do this stuff legally. So, with bank interest rates going up on cash deposits, I don't see how people are going to keep getting yield on these things. Even if you're doing a staking model at Coinbase, or Kraken or any of these, where do they get the yield? They got to take the tokens and stake them somewhere else. So, it's kind of like, whether it's nodes or it's, some other platform, those yields are all going to collapse. So, the next thing is you'd only be able to take that if you were Kraken and you were, say, okay, you'd only be able to take it to other US-based protocols that were also compliant. So there's going to be no yield. It's like there's not any. So with a not, bank model, remember, pay 3% on the deposits, lend it out at 6%. So somebody's got to come up with a model that is internalized. Go ahead.
But here's the thing. If you're speculating that Phantom, Ethereum, Avalanche, all the ones that have validator nodes and that allow for liquid staking, products like Rocket Pool that allow you to do it decentralized, Lido's probably going to come under pressure here. But if you believe that those tokens are going to have more value in the future, then the payout of 5 or 6 or 4% on those is worth far more than what you're going to get from a bank, because you're betting on not only the 5 or 6% you're getting, but you're also betting on the future value of those tokens, right? So that return is far greater than what you can get from a bank. Look, at the end of the day, Gensler is out to shut it down, because when he gets out of this whole thing, he wants to be the middleman. And that is all that he cares about. And as long as people in this industry let him ride over them, we're never going to get clarity in the United States. And so you're right. There are other places that people are going to have to go. So Sean says, these issues are not the issues. These risks over shitcoin land mean no institutional money, no shitcoin bull run. These need to be resolved one way or the other. Yeah, look, institutions aren't going to come in if they think Gensler is going to come down on everybody. So you're right. But again, these are all centralized operations. Niblet says, so does money leave the space to see how things shake out, or does it move into DeFi where it can be more anonymous? Look, I think everybody that was focused on centralized was earning their staking yield. Yeah, I would gather maybe 10% go searching for DeFi because they understand what DeFi is, and the rest of them don't have a fucking clue what DeFi is. So,
I would say there are a few institutional DeFi plays out there. And I think it's expressly because of what we just talked about, that the yields are collapsing on the centralized plays, the custody plays. So they've got to go out and get yield somewhere else. And, we talk about those protocols a lot. And so to me, I'm like, they got to start looking more in those areas where, you can do more things to get yield. Otherwise, because it's going to take 3 or 4 years for people, say regulators to figure out, where the vulnerabilities are in those protocols, if they ever can. So,
hey, Joe, our guest is here.
Awesome.
All right. Hello, Dylan.
Hi.
How are you, sir?
Hey.
I'm good. I'm doing well.
Cool, man. Do you want to use your full name on the show, or how do you want to be referred to?
Yeah, that's fine. Dylan. I'm Dylan Kawalec.
Hey, Dylan, welcome aboard. We met you through our attendance of Quantum and got connected up because Matthew, because you're building in the space. I think you have a show in the space. And so it was great. It's great to connect up with you, man.
Yeah, brother. Thank you. Just thanks for just having me on the show. And it's really cool.
Sure.
I see what you're doing, and I see you have Project Greenfield up. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, and thank you to Matt. Matt's awesome. Me and Matt met in Consensus last year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He's a master networker, man. That guy just is relentless.
No, yeah.
His company, for the listeners, is Purple Squirrel Media, Matthew Karstens. Great guy.
Yeah, he's a legend.
So Dylan, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into all this, and then let's dive into what BNB Greenfield is.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna go back to like the Harmony days. I joined the developer DAO back in 2020, and then was elected in for like the last year. And we did the Zero Knowledge University, which I joined, and then I took part of that. And so I started getting really deep into zero knowledge proofs. I loved the mission statement that Discrete Labs had put out, which was the Fedora Foundation. And then they were saying that, there was a possibility that Bitcoin should have actually been private at the start. And that was probably one of the missing technologies that were just not viably available at that time.
Right.
And so I joined their team and I said, what do you guys have going on? And they said, well, we have a ZK UTXO. So we're actually trying to make Bitcoin private and fully anonymous, but then we have the ability to audit our privacy statements. And so I got really deep into auditing their code library, which was based on turboplunks and bulletproofs, which was the same semantic that Monero uses for their privacy.
Oh, very nice.
So yeah, so Discrete Labs was actually the inventor of bulletproofs, which then implemented into Monero. And so we were working on the next iteration, which was full triple masking privacy, and to having your actual address be hidden for EVM compatible chains. And
nice.
So we got super far into it. Yeah. And then we got some DApps working. We did the hackathon last in ETH Denver. And then, we just worked throughout the whole year, and that was awesome. And then ZK BNB reached out and they were like, hey, let's have you on the team. We're doing a ZK rollup. And I joined their team. And then, this Project Greenfield kind of got put in my lap really recently. And I was like, okay, this sounds really badass, actually, because I like the fact that we can finally interface with cloud applications with smart contracts. And I was trying to think of ways to implement privacy into this and thinking how we can have anonymous file transfers in the decentralized cloud of things. Like if I wanted to send you a Google Drive link without anybody seeing it, or like really having restricted access in the cloud, that's kind of what we're trying to think about doing. And that's what Project Greenfield ultimately is. It's a decentralized cloud storage network.
Nice. Very nice. Can you run through, let's run through from the top there that it's a decentralized cloud storage network. Do you mean it's connecting to existing storage providers and it just kind of records data about that on the blockchain, or it's an entire storage facility somehow separate from standard storage providers?
Yeah, you're almost on the money, actually. So anybody can actually become a storage provider, and we see anybody having their own service level agreement when they actually start asking their clients to start storing their data on their nodes. And so there's an entire peer-to-peer network of storage nodes inside of the Project Greenfield chain. It is its own blockchain aside from the rest of the other blockchains that BNB makes up of. And so we call this the Greenfield chain, and it actually has its own set of new validators. And so these validators are validating blocks, and these blocks, it's not an EVM compatible chain, but it does hold metadata, and such as like 721. So right. ERC 721, which is like the standard of NFT, we call it the BEP 721. And so we have the same exact thing in this chain. And your NFTs, essentially, when you put in data on Greenfield, on a storage provider, it copies a metadata fragment, a segment, a piece, right? A container, and it makes that data object into an equivalent metadata piece on the blockchain. And now what I can do is say, hey, smart contract on layer 1 on BNB, can you interface with the permissions of my data stored object on Greenfield? And yes, you can. So I can set permissions, I can take off permissions, I can get data, I can delete data, I can move data, I can do anything I want with smart contracts, interfacing with the cloud application. And that cloud application could be anything. So anything you think an SW3, which is like Amazon or a cloud Azure or Google Cloud, anything that you can think of in terms of backend and front end services for like storage and data, you can do now with like a smart contract. You can interact with those systems from the back end with a contract living on the blockchain.
Very nice.
Wow.
Now, is this like all up and running and going right now? Are you guys in the middle of development? What's the status of the project?
We're super close.
Yeah.
This has been in the works for a long time, and now we actually just announced that we're doing some sort of a close partnership with AWS in doing this, and there's others that are going to be jumping on board too. That I don't know if I can say yet, but there are other really major companies in the space, decentralized storage networks in the space, that want to just jump into this, because it's open to anybody. It's radically decentralized. It's
Nice.
like it's anybody can be a storage provider and have their own service agreements. And if someone storage provider wants to offer greater privacy and security and control to their users, they can. If the other one wants to make it seem like, yeah, well, everything that you put on, we're just going to analyze and track your data like a Google, like they can say that to people too. But then there are rebates. So the cool thing is that all of this is still working with the BNB token. And you have the option to either permanently store or delete the data. So now there is a rebate faction inside of all of this. So I can actually get money back for deleting data off the cloud. So I don't need to store data forever if I don't need to. So I'm going to be using it for a decentralized podcast. I'm going to be trying to put data in the cloud, which is way cheaper in a decentralized storage network, and then pull it off. And then since for a terabyte on Google, it costs, I think, like $10 a month, it would only cost you 79 cents a month.
Wow.
And then you would also just take it off and you can get rebates. And we don't have an exact percentage yet, but yes, you will get money back for taking data off the cloud, and you would get your money back. So
go ahead. So the idea is this, and let me make sure because I know there are other kind of models in the data storage world that are out there, but the incentives here are as follows. If I'm a user, I have a way to store data much more cheaply, and having that data be available via the blockchain and via kind of interfaces. So people could build all kinds of interfaces for Dropbox-like interfaces. You have examples here of, so that'd be personal cloud storage, website hosting, publishing, social media, whatever. So I can store more cheaply and potentially anonymously on BNB. Now I'm forgotten the name of your project. That's embarrassing.
So Greenfield.
Yeah. But at the same time, I could be a storage provider. I could spend up VPS at a facility, or have my own facility, provide storage here, and I will get paid. I assume, I'm making assumptions here, I'll get paid by people that are utilizing the storage, and I can have my own set of agreements with users on kind of how the data is stored, security, whatever it might be. And do I set my own prices if I'm a storage provider?
So we don't have the exact pricing model out right now, and that's actually still in the works, because it's we're seeing the value in it, but we're also trying to make it as fair and economically viable as possible, because it is disruptive. Like if you start putting out a completely open source decentralized cloud storage network for everybody to use, that's just as crazy as like making AWS free. Like it's insane. So we're trying to be as careful as possible. But yes, like you are the one who does set the terms of agreement. So if you want to give your clients, more data or more bandwidth for a greater price, like it's just like, the rewards that you get from validators. So when you stake to a validator, you can get more or less depending on their, they control it. So it's the same thing. Like we advise storage providers to actually be competitive with one another, which is healthy in terms of growing. And that's what we expect, actually, because now storage providers have their own tools. I think I would say if they're going to host web services or cloud storages, or you're going to be able to have maybe an RSA feed for your podcast, maybe there's a storage provider that provides this instead of you using Libsyn, or instead of you using CyberDuck. Maybe they already have a backend where when you post your stuff, maybe your podcasts get automatically published to these same platforms. And that's just what the storage provider provides. They provide some sort of API for you. That's exactly what they do. So they provide their own sets of services, and you get to choose which one you store your data to. And if you want to move it, there's no penalty. You get to move your data at any time to other storage providers, and that's the freedom and the control that you have. And all of it is encrypted.
That's awesome. So you guys envision that each of the data storage providers will have their own APIs, their own interfaces to access the data. So theoretically, a podcast provider, a services provider could use Greenfield for storage of their clients' podcasts, but the people that are doing the podcast would know that they were stored via the system on the blockchain, and they could move it when they wanted to, et cetera. But there won't be any like generalized interface to this. This will be more about the community building different kinds of use case interfaces to what the network provides. Is that correct?
It's yeah, there's a nice little sweet spot right in the middle. We call it the Greenfield DApps. So Greenfield DApps are applications that interface with the cloud data, the stored objects, and we call them buckets and groups. So when you have a bucket, you put objects in that bucket, like an apple inside of a basket, and then certain people get to pick those apples. So those are called group permissions. So certain people have accounts, and those accounts basically give me and you the ability to pick that apple. But if I say you can't pick that apple, Brad, then you can't. And that's what the smart contract allows for me to do. So my account on BNB is the equivalent to the BNB account on Greenfield. So any permission, I have more control over the DApp interface actually, because if I connect my wallet, if one of the permissions says disconnect the wallet anytime you use a DApp, then it will. It has to abide by those permissions because the metadata says so on the Greenfield chain. And the validators are basically relaying this information through what's known as the resource mirror. All of these details will just be like explained further. We're going to release more stuff eventually, but these are the highly technical details of how the architecture works. But it works as you imagine it, with this whole interface of working with contracts and storage.
Okay. So you are providing some level of interface, but for the most part, it'll be interacting with the providers who are providing the storage, and they'll have their use cases and models around that.
Yeah, you would mainly, you as a user would really only just interact with your primary storage provider. It's the primary storage provider who has a bunch of secondary storage providers.
Got it.
And they have what's known as like data availability has to get segmented. So when I store data, it gets split up, and we call it segmentation. So you segment the data, and then there are data blocks, and these data blocks get stored on all these secondary providers. And some of it is redundant. So that way the data is always available in case one of the storage providers goes down, because that's always a possibility. Then there's always redundant parity data. So that way I can always get back my data in case that ever gets deleted. And that's so awesome. So we have a lot of the best working pieces that we looked at all of the other DSNs, and we're trying to solve for a lot of those same problems while also making it sustainable. I don't necessarily think just making free storage, it makes any sense. You have to have some limitations, and there has to be a way where it can be sustainable over the long term, and also cheap enough and cheaper than a centralized cloud storage network. So that's exactly where this fits in. It's not the best in terms of like how you store data, in terms of your pricing, but that's actually better because now I can actually assure myself that the storage providers are getting network fees and they are collecting, something for working on the network. And then validators are also getting a lot of these fees as well. And then clients have the same exact rebate opportunities. So we call this the data owned economy. So there has to be tokens have to be shared and so on and so forth. So we're going to talk more about these like Greenfield economics eventually. I don't have all the details on it, but I wanted to be as specific as possible. So
sure. Do you guys, and you said this is going to be operating utilizing BNB as the token for the project? Yeah. Okay, cool. So, very cool.
Yeah, the BNB token is a cloud token now, essentially. Great. And in testnet shouldn't be around, I think I would by the end of March. So nice. You're going to be able to at least test the API and just see how it works by that time. Yeah.
Do you guys envision you'll have a marketplace? Sorry, Joe. Do you guys envision you'll have a marketplace of providers where you guys will kind of list everybody that's building on it and people can find what they need?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, like BNB already did this with DApp Bay. So we already have all the DApps in a single website. So I imagine like a single repository of providers, like something like where you get to go to a staking site. I imagine the same thing with storage provision.
Nice. Sorry, Joe, go ahead.
No, that's cool. I just want to ask a quick question, Dylan. So I was talking to another group a few weeks ago, and they're working in like mobile and cloud and all of that, and being able to move from across all those platforms like drag and drop. But it's encrypting it as it goes to the other platforms so that the storage provider can't read it either. And when you said yours is encrypted earlier, I presume that's the same thing. Is that right?
So what I mean by encryption is erasure encoding. So this is the Reed-Solomon encryption. So this basically means that when data is in transit, the data is what it says that it is. So it's verifiably correct. So your data is secure. There is no way that the data is not what it says that it is. Now it's up to the storage provider to offer these sorts of permissions to make your data then thus private. But we are enabling some of these factors, and we are talking to partners right now to enable this level of privacy and encryption. And it does not say it in the white paper. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying that, your data is private in this cloud. So it will be, because it is something that a service can then offer. And that's where we speak to special people, like people who are experts in their field, to come over and to talk about with us, hey, like, how do you imagine a data-owned economy? Well, some say we need it to be private. Some say we need it to be more like AWS and Google, right? We have people across the board with different opinions.
I just want to say another thing. It's so funny. I don't know if you heard the first part of the show when we were talking about, the various crackdowns. And, Brad, this is like a perfect example where, this is the type of thing that we need to all be focused in, is this type of technology, the real decentralized technology across, every sort of platform that we're looking at, storage, money transmittal, all of it. Because this is where we've always really wanted to get, is to this level. It's the interim solutions, the short-term ones that are sort of been marketed toward TradeFi folks that are all getting in trouble now. So it's just refreshing to see these types of opportunities out there that are coming down the pipe that I think solve a lot of the problems that we're always grappling with today.
Absolutely. Dylan, how many folks are on the team building this thing?
I think so far I've counted maybe like half a dozen, but I don't know everybody on the team. Yeah. There is a lot of people in and around the BNB network. So I only get to speak to some of them. I was actually the first United States network employee ever. So I was excited about it, but everyone is like 9 hours and 12 hours away from me. So I don't ever get to see them.
What, and this came out of, again, where did this project came out of another project, or it's just been, the founders started it and it was, it's just its own thing. Is there some kind of a tie to the BNB chain team in any way, or is this just kind of something that was started separately?
No, so that's actually the really interesting thing. When joining the team, I joined super recently, and even the ZK BNB project was some random amount of people who just pitched it, and they were like, "Hey, we think we need to roll up on BNB chain." And some people, I don't know who exactly, but they're just like, okay, we'll vest into it, we support it, and it actually has to go through the BIP process. Right. So you have to have a proposal be set and saying, hey, do we want to improve the BNB network by adding another chain? And then the people say yes or no. So it goes through that process first. And then there are core engineers who figure out how this would work. And then they talk to the right investors to put the time and the effort into that. And then I think it goes straight to production. And then it takes like 6-7 months to build. So this was something really similar where we had massive experts in like the fields of, Google and cloud and all these certain technologies kind of come on board and say, hey, we want to build something really radical. And they said yes. It was kind of crazy. I was in the process of writing technical articles for this when they didn't even say yes to it yet. Like it was funny because we were just like, okay, so this is going to be crazy. We don't know if this is really the move forward, but BNB always had this like a level of criticism that it was like too centralized. And I really think that this was the what's the term where it's like, this is the ball in the hoop type of thing, where it's just like they needed to shoot a shot that was so far from left field that needed to radically decentralize this idea. And I love the direction actually, because I think about it from more of like a DApp perspective. And now I have a radically decentralized cloud storage network, and then I can interface with smart contracts in any way that I want. And I think that'll just be a better overall experience for this particular ecosystem. And I think that's going to also enable other ecosystems as well. So I'm excited to see how this translates and influences the rest of the industry, because it will.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think one of the things that you were talking about kind of the reputation of BNB. Look, the whether fair or not, the other part of the reputation of BNB is that it's a bunch of copy pasta protocols. Not a lot of innovation happening. I don't think that's fair, but that's just kind of the rep. So I think a project like this really, and BNB ZK really is an opportunity for the rest of the space to see that, in fact, there's a lot more going on from a technical perspective on BNB and more sophisticated stuff. And projects that are launching as radically decentralized will do a lot, I think, to kind of boost the overall brand of the chain itself.
I agree with you, and just to kind of touch on one thing is like, they're kind of building random like little side projects that no one adopts. Well, the thing is when I was getting onboarded, the number one thing that they taught me for like the first 3 weeks was security. So crypto security and how to actually like even exist on the internet in the most secure way, how to protect my passwords and everything, right? So everything that they build is centered towards more security more than anything else. So the mission of BNB isn't to build and break shit. It's to build and make sure that it's going to be long-term and sustainable, because they don't want to have to build it again. And so everything that we build as a network has to go through a really long, arduous process of saying, okay, is this the best implementation of that existing title, tech, whatever it might be? So when ZKBNB got launched, that was because one particular team, Zacrae, had the most secure solution for a ZK rollup. And we weren't going to just fork Polygon and say, all right, now we have a ZK rollup, when it's really up in the air with whether or not that's going to be a safe option. Let's be honest, like they don't even know if it's going to be audited correct by next month. Like they're still worried that their audits are not even the most accurate. And they have to spend a lot of internal resources, not external resources, to get that audited primarily. And so we have to have and make sure that anything that is decentralized and in the hands of the public, everybody can be a public member using anything. So if you want to make sure that if anyone on the planet, good or bad, that's the subjective thing, you have to make it secure regardless, because nobody is going to trust it if it's not a secure use of their time. And like, that's even what a trader thinks. So everything when it comes to the trade of any traditional finance has to be secure, and otherwise there's no point in using it. So yeah, it's your money. It's you don't want to just throw your money into the air and let it disappear.
Exactly. No, absolutely. This looks fantastic, man. Do you know, is the team looking for, are you building a community? Are you hiring people? Is there a way people can get involved with the project, or is that further down the line as you guys get closer to launch?
No, we're super like down to talk to anybody to like think about storage provision and how to get this into their hands. I know that there's a couple of, I can't name existing companies, but anybody who's very interested in the data owned economy and like even DAO payment systems and DAO data storage, right? Like, how does a community own a single website and participate in the building of it or something? Or maybe it's like something where I actually have like a research repository of information, and then I execute certain permissions on that data to then commit or to delete data, right? Or if there are maybe external payment solutions that I have to use a permission based system, and then the smart contract issues payments based off of cloud data, not just on-chain data, that could also be a lot faster, and you can multiply and distribute tokens in a much more fair way across different accounts. So really depends. Like, there are at least 100 use cases, because this is cloud technology, but now you have to combine your head with cloud and smart contracts and think of new solutions, and we're looking for innovators.
Nice.
That's what we're looking for.
So there are projects that are out there building on it now, or preparing for it, and there would be opportunities from a biz dev perspective for you guys to reach out and bring in others that may have ideas to build on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Like
great.
it's awesome.
Okay, so it's this. I'm going to sound like a complete idiot, but that's never stopped me on this show before. It's just clicking for me that this is actually like an official BNB chain project. Like this is like coming from that team. It is not a secondary project that was launched and has partnered with BNB chain. It is actually, your website is actually built into the menu and navigation system of the entire BNB chain website.
It is a part of the whole ecosystem. Every single chain will be able to utilize Greenfield.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So
Yeah.
I didn't even realize how deep this was. So that's fantastic to see, and it's great to see BNB Chain doing this. And fantastic to see to meet you and see how involved and excited. You sound incredibly excited about working on this project, man.
Oh, it's the coolest thing, because I didn't think of myself as getting into computer science to one day end up working on a project like this. Like, you think you're going to program some boring shit and then you end up doing really crazy stuff. So yeah,
that's awesome. That's really great. Well, listen,
Cool.
I would love to get you back on sometime, and I hate to cut you short, but I actually have a hard stop today, unfortunately a little bit early. But I would love to get back on with you and learn more about it as things proceed and see how it's going. And maybe you could start telling us about, at some point, some of the projects that are building on it. We can talk about them and learn more about what they're doing as well.
Yeah, you're the best. Thank you so much, and letting me talk about it too. It's
absolutely, man. Thanks so much, and we'll have you back on, because I think this looks really fascinating. It's making me want to take a deeper dive back into BNB chain, which I haven't done lately. So thanks for coming on.
Yeah, and I see a lot of Dylan. I see a lot of interesting things here with the decentralized storage component in other vertical markets, and I'll send you a message directly to talk about that. But this is super exciting. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right,
thanks, man. Have a good day.
Bye, buddy.
Bye. Well, that's pretty cool.
Wow, that was refreshing.
Yeah,
I mean, I just love it when we run across these projects that the first 10 minutes of the show is all doom and gloom, basically. And then you come across a project like this and you're like, look, man, we got to be focusing on this. Who cares about yield on tokens and shit like that? I mean, that's just so like 2018. This stuff is like where we want to go, kind of thing. The privacy, the decentralization, able to interface with all the existing cloud platforms that are all about compute. And then having it, I could think of someone that's doing that piece of encrypting the data onto those platforms. That would be an awesome hookup for them, an international guy. I mean, you think about genomics, think about all the data stuff. We talk about DNA privacy. I mean, there's so many things that can be done here. And I'm so glad that we run across these some days just to pick up Monday, basically.
Yeah. Well, listen, and I mean, I am like, I didn't realize until the very last minute that this was actually an official BNB chain project, right? And look, I mean, I think he's new and he's trying to figure everything out that they're talking about, but I'm really fascinated by this thing. I'm going to take a much deeper dive, and I think it's really good for the BNB chain brand overall that this is being built, that resources are deployed to it, and it's working out. Euphoric said, nice interview and very interesting project. Niblet said, yeah, that was good. No hard sell, straight goods. And you notice there's no token. It's just BNB token, right? So that's cool too. Max Life gives us a big thumbs up. So overall,
right now.
Exactly. This is great. I'm excited about it, Joe, and definitely want to take a deeper dive. And also makes me want to take another look at BNB. It has been a very long time since I've done anything on BNB chain. So
once we all got kicked off of Binance, it was pretty much forgot about that. But look, the white paper's up. You can find it easily. It's a good one too. Yeah. BNB Greenfield.
And it probably would have helped me if I actually looked at the URL that I clicked to get to the website, since the URL is bnbchain.org/en/greenfield. So I'll put that link as well in the show notes. But that was fantastic. Great. Great. I was kind of coming into this one a little blind. I was a little nervous. And so
you did great.
No, not that I wouldn't do well. I just mean I didn't know what we were getting on the other side of the microphone, right? So I was
yeah. When I read through the white paper the first time, I was like, this guy's going to be sharp. And then I kind of got lost with the birthday weekend celebrations, and I kind of came in forgetting about it today too. But then I was like, once he started talking about decentralized storage has always been something I've been interested in. since the early 2000s. But different concept, not on chain. It was obviously just one circulating. But this solves a lot of problems.
Well, if they
I know you got to go. But
there's a lot of players. I mean, look, there's a lot of players trying to do decentralized file storage, Arweave, Filecoin, and others. But their approach is very interesting and very differentiated. And look, I mean, if you talk about, here's the way, if I were doing biz dev on this project and marketing on this project, right, I would be going to people who are doing storage like Anchor FM and anybody else that has has a SaaS offering that has storage in it, file storage for users, I'd be saying, look, you can up your margins for your monthly subscription or increase the amount of storage you offer to customers, because we're at less than 1/10 of what you're going to pay for AWS. And it's secure, it's duplicated, it's redundant, and it can even be encrypted and private eventually. So to me, that's a really strong pitch. And that bridges people into Web 2 that don't even have to know that it's blockchain, right? They just know that they're getting secure, duplicated, backed up storage, encrypted, that is dramatically cheaper than what they get from directly using other providers. So
think of the analog real quick before you go. So we talk about like banks, and we talk about, wiring and how expensive it is, how long it takes. And then, Stellar or whomever, somebody comes along and it's 10 cents. So, the banks, instead of charging $600, they charge $300, but the cost of goods sold to move it is, 10 cents. So now think about Google. You go there and you pay your $20 a year or whatever, and then they're offloading the storage into secondary storage centers at 97 cents. So they're pocketing that margin. So it's these kind of innovations where all of a sudden you're getting all the benefits you should have, the privacy and the deletes and all that kind of thing. But it also makes sense to the incumbent oligopolic providers. Yep. It doesn't disrupt them in the same way as, a burn down the banks mentality. So the last thing I'll say is I keep thinking about StreamYard. I thought you were going to mention that, but how they're always bumping up against storage limits and things like that. And, if there was a way where, it would just automatically offload it into secondary storage, and then when episodes got old, or you were going to back them up or something in some other way, you could take them down. I mean, that was the interesting thing to me too, the paying you to take down stored files. That monetization. So there's a lot of really cool stuff here to explore. And I hope everybody who listens goes and reads that white paper.
Max says we should compare and contrast with Akash. I have my interview with the founder of Akash coming out late this week, so look forward to that. But actually, I do see some comparisons there, and they started as storage people, and that's what they are. But now they're moving into GPU and a bunch of other cool shit. I think they're higher on the enterprise end of things, but I think there's a lot of opportunity there. But definitely, I think we should do a compare and contrast, Max. So, hey everybody, thanks so much for listening and watching. Really appreciate you all participating. Max, Niblets, Euphoric, Sean, thank you for being here today. Hope everyone has the great rest of their Monday evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it is for you in your part of the world. Look for this episode to be out with show notes and the links. Don't forget about picking up that free Optimism money. It was a nice surprise this weekend, so you may have it and not even realize it. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Click the thumbs up or smash the thumbs up. Click subscribe and the alerts bell on YouTube so you get notified about new episodes. Joe, I hope you have a great day. Everybody else, thank you, and I hope you have a great day.
Best wishes to your mother-in-law.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, buddy.
All right, take care.
See you, everybody.